Good morning, everybody. It's great to see so many people have joined Day 2 of National Apprenticeship Week. Today we're joined by Routes into Rail, who will be talking about their exciting apprenticeship opportunities. Before we begin the presentation, you can see the chat facility on the right-hand side, and we're live, so we encourage you to put any questions and comments in the chat box, and we'll run through them all at the Q&A session. So thanks for joining, everybody. And before we begin the presentation, could you all just give a bit of introduction of yourselves?
Hi everyone. I'll go first because I'm your host for today. Thank you ever so much for joining us. So I'm Mike Falconer. I work for the National Skills Academy for Rail. We're the guys who kind of produce and put on Routes into Rail. And my job is very much around quality management in qualifications, apprenticeship standards, and I also run some other skills related projects for train companies and Network Rail and HS2 and others as well. I'm by no means the most interesting person you're going to hear from today. So we've actually got 4 apprentices who lined up to talk to you about their experiences. So I will just hand over very briefly to introduce herself. Rhiannon Honeywell from Network Rail.
Hi everyone. I work for Network Rail. I'm a finance apprentice and I have been for 4 years now. So basically, very briefly, I started off the scheme with no finance experience and in a few months will hopefully be chartered accountant, but I'll share a bit more of that with you in a few minutes.
Thank you, Rhiannon. And Ryan Lord from Amy.
Morning, I'm Ryan. I'm a degree apprentice working for Amy on the construction side of rail, so actually putting in the track. I'm working on all the different areas, so I've worked in signalling, power and distribution, surveys, lots more.
Thank you very much, Ryan. And we have Jade Appleton also from Amy.
Hi there. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jade Appleton and I work for Amy. I'm currently an assistant project manager, and I actually did an apprentice in business administration over 5 years ago. That's how I joined Amy. I am currently doing another qualification that is done through an apprenticeship, but again, I'll speak to you more about that later on.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And last but by no means least, we have Matthew Horscroft, who is from Great Western Rail.
Hi everyone, my name's Matt. I have been on the customer service apprenticeship for the last 6 months with Great Western Railway, and basically once every 6 weeks I switch to a different job to train for, as they train you up to do pretty much all customer service related jobs you can do within the job.
Fantastic, thank you. I can see some questions are already coming into the chat, which is fantastic. What I will say is each of these guys are going to talk to you for about 5 or 6 minutes, and then what we'll do is we'll have 4 or 5 minutes at the end just to ask questions. So if you could just keep hold of your questions until these guys have delivered their presentations, then what I can do is pick out a couple and put them to our presenters. But it's really good to see that questions are coming in already. What I'll do then is I'll just move straight into the presentation. And actually, I think we've got a short video just to describe more about Routes into Rail.
A career in rail means much more than high-vis jackets and checking tickets. At Routes into Rail, discover hundreds of exciting roles in a sector that never stops moving. It's an industry full of innovative designers and engineers, software developers and data analysts, marketeers and commercial professionals. Working around the world, they're taking on the challenge of transforming transport systems, making them smarter, faster, and better for the environment. Want to join them? There's a career for everyone. And if you've got the skills, passion, and potential, we've got roles ready and waiting. Supported by industry leaders, Routes into Rail is a brand new platform packed with all the information you need to embark on your career path. From building trains to building relationships, watch insider videos to learn what a life in rail can look like, and search for the latest opportunities to get your career on the right track. Visit routesintorail.org to find out more. Think differently, think smarter, think rail.
But as you've seen in the video, there are literally thousands of careers in rail. It's not just driving trains, checking tickets, and helping out on the platform as well. There are thousands of digital roles available. There's a lot of environmental roles, construction as well. There's automation coming into the rail as well. So there's lots of AI and robotics and automation to play with as well. There's a lot of work in logistics, keeping trains running, keeping trains on time, making sure that there's adequate staff as well to run the rail safely. As you'll be aware, a lot of the train companies have quite big media campaigns. There's a lot of advertising, social media that's done, trying to improve the profile of some of the train companies out there. And as you might be aware, there's some massive projects happening at the moment. We're just coming to the end of a huge project called Crossrail, the largest civil engineering project in Europe at the time. And there's also High Speed 2 that's happening as well. Lots of new technologies coming online to really develop the infrastructure. Also, there's a lot of architecture. There's a lot of civil engineering, bridges, stations, a lot of the services that connect to rail as well, like road. And also, it's not just about passengers as well. There's also freight as well, and there's also engineering and specialist plant that runs on the rail as well. And also, there's as a multi-million-pound industry, there's a lot of finance, and I believe we've got a finance apprentice that we're going to be hearing from later on as well. So as you can see, there are literally thousands of careers available in rail that you just don't see. This just gives us a little bit of a forecast about some of the scale of some of these jobs. So we are actually going to require an additional 1,400 train drivers in the next 3 years. So there's a lot of vacancies out there for train drivers. There's a train driver academy being set up by the Rail Delivery Group, which is a group of train operating companies. And there is also, if you weren't aware, a train driving apprenticeship, which is only 12 months in duration. So a lot of people can go into train driving with no experience at the age of 21, because that's the age that you need to have a train driving license. And within 12 months, they're earning, quite a lot of money, sort of, between 40 and 55,000 pounds on a main line. There's also 18,000 engineering jobs needed over the next 3 years. As we know, there's a lot of rail infrastructure projects at the moment, and there's also a lot of engineers needed to keep the trains running as well, to work on track, to work on what we call traction and rolling stock. So that's engines and carriages, and also signalling and all the other infrastructure as well, the electrification, mechanical and electrical plant, telecoms as well, overhead lines. And there's also specific apprenticeships coming online for high speed infrastructure and some of the other emerging technologies as well, like automation and robotics. There's also 3,000 IT jobs out there as well, from technical jobs, that's architects, soft systems architects, analysts and software engineers. We are moving to a more digital railway. So a lot of the sort of more analog communications and signaling systems are all going digital now as well. So there really is just a huge amount of people needed to support this industry. So this one thing that we're told we don't do enough of is actually mapping, careers in rail as well. As we know that there's progression available in most industries, but rail, there is a lot of progression as well. Interestingly enough, the chief executive of HS2 used to be an apprentice. So really the sky is the limit. Many people start their careers in rail through an apprenticeship. And you can just see here a couple of examples in engineering. So you can go in as an apprentice. You can then move into being a supervisor. And then as you progress, your options get more and more. So you could go into commercial, you could go into health, safety and environment, or you could go into engineering management as well. Same here on the bottom, where we've got a career route for a transport planner. So going in again as an apprentice, moving into an assistant, and then moving into project management as well. So the longer you stay in the industry and the more you develop, it kind of branches out like a tree, and you've got more and more specialisms and things that you can learn, and more opportunities that you can follow. And I'm sure some of our apprentices are going to sort of talk about their progression as well in a moment. But most importantly, rail is for everyone. Years and years ago, someone told me this just the other day when I was interviewing them. They were told, so they were a train driver, and they were told that we can't have women train drivers because women aren't strong enough to lift a coupling. This was back in the 70s, I will add. Those days are over. Rail is for everyone. Okay, there is not a job in the railway that is closed to anyone. What you can see here is some case studies, and this is just a few that are available on the Routes into Rail website. So I urge you to go onto the website and read some of these profiles of all the different people doing different jobs in rail, and you will learn that there is really no job that's closed to anyone. It's a really inclusive and really supportive industry. Okay, so I'm going to hand over now to the first of our speakers. This is Rhiannon from Network Rail. And as mentioned, I'll be monitoring the chat for any questions as well. Over to you, Rhiannon.
Thank you. Yeah, so as I briefly mentioned earlier, I'm a finance apprentice for Network Rail. I'll start off by quickly describing what Network Rail does for those of you that don't know. So Network Rail owns, develops Britain's railway infrastructure. So that's the physical track, the bridges, the level crossings. That's our job, to maintain that, to make sure that's all fit for purpose and being enhanced to improve the railway experience for everyone. We don't own or manage the actual trains, that they're run by the train operating companies, but we are responsible for creating the train planners. So you might think that because Network Rail is responsible for the physical infrastructure, that most of the jobs are engineering related, and that is true. The vast majority of our workforce are kind of track engineers, but we've got 40,000 people that work for us, and so there is a vast amount of other jobs available too, from HR, commercial, IT, project management, finance. And actually at Network Rail there are apprenticeships in most of those career paths, and so I would really encourage you to kind of look on the website and on the careers page to see what there might be available for you. So what attracted me to Network Rail? Well, I actually wanted to go to uni to be a doctor, but it didn't quite work out. And to be honest with you, the fact that I could get paid whilst being paid to study was a massive incentive for me. I'm going to come out with the equivalent of a master's qualification whilst having no debt at all. And whilst doing so, working for a really interesting company that is continuing to develop and positively impact people's day-to-day lives. And that was really important to me. At Network Rail, the way the apprenticeship works is I started off in September 2017, and I'm on my third qualification. So I've actually technically done 2 apprenticeships already. So I did AAT level 3 and 4, which is the Association of Accounting Technicians. And now I'm studying to be part of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. And during that time, I've done rotational placements. I'm actually on my 8th placement, which might feel a bit daunting to some of you, and it did to me as well. I used to be quite introverted, and the idea of changing teams and having to build relationships with new people all the time was really quite daunting, and I didn't enjoy it to start with. But actually everybody that I've worked with is so lovely and supportive, and it's really helped me to build my relationship building skills and my communication and all those kind of skills that are going to be invaluable to me as I progress through my career. And it's meant that I've got to experience all different parts of the business. I've done normal management accounting, which is what I'm doing at the moment. So my day-to-day is analysing reports and information to provide updates to the financial director and the commercial managers to help them maintain their budget, to help them do their forecast for the next financial year, and also to problem solve to make sure that all the finances are how we think they should be. But I've also played a key part in writing the financial statements for different subsidiaries within Network Rail, which get submitted to Companies House. I've been responsible for uploading the corporation tax computations for a lot of Network Rail subsidiaries from start to finish. And I've also done a commercial placement, which was really interesting. So managing contracts with customers and suppliers and taking part in an active legal claim and things like that. And so I've had a really broad experience of kind of life in the railway, and I found it extremely interesting. And those skills I've learned through that will help me to progress my career. And like was said earlier, you don't have to stick on one route in finance. I know people that are finance, they're like finance business partners, they go into project management or into commercial. And that's the great thing about railway. There are so many opportunities, and that definitely attracted me to Network Rail. As an apprentice at Network Rail, I get a lot of study support. So roughly I have Fridays off to study, and this used to be through college, but since COVID hit and things like that, I now do it online, and I have to manage that time myself. I also get time off to revise before my exams and the day of my exam off. So I sit my exam and I can relax for the rest of the day. And they're so supportive. We get to do site visits to track and to different places to broaden our horizons and our knowledge. And I was also a new entrants representative, so I had the opportunity to represent all the other apprentices and bring questions and challenge to the apprenticeship scheme managers. And this just helps to develop yourself ready for coming off the scheme into a permanent role. Primarily, the role that I do is based in Milton Keynes. However, there are different finance apprenticeships around Network Rail, and they are extremely supportive. So for personal reasons, I wanted to move to Scotland, and they have supported me in that. I have moved to Scotland. I'm doing a placement in Scotland, and they will continue to support me until I secure a permanent role in Scotland in the next few months as I roll off the scheme. So there is so much opportunity, and they really want what's best for you. I was having a chat with my line manager yesterday, talking about where I want my career to go, and it really is just what is best for me, what do I want with my career, and how can they support me in that. And every single person I've worked with is so supportive of my study, because it is difficult to work full-time and to study. I'm not going to lie, studying to be a chartered management accountant isn't an easy ride. I have to put in a lot of work and a lot of hours, and sometimes it can be hard to juggle the work and the study. But everyone supports me. I get the time off that I need to do that, and the understanding from people around me that I can't do as much work as someone that works 5 days a week. And yeah, everyone's just extremely supportive. If you wanted to apply for a job in rail, the advice I would give is to look on the different websites and find out what each company does. Think about what's important to the railway, safety, for the fact that our ultimate goal is to satisfy the customer, how those things tie in and what skills you can bring. You don't have to know loads about the railway. You don't have to know loads about finance. That's the whole point of an apprenticeship. But actually, what transferable skills do you have, and what are you looking to develop? But I would honestly recommend a career in railway to everyone. There is so much opportunity, and so much opportunity to develop yourself and your career as you go forward. So I'll hand over to the next person now.
Thank you so much for that. Really, really, really interesting. We do have one question from Lauren. I'm not sure if this was actually directly directed at you or it was a more general question, but I will just ask it because it's a great question. What is your favorite thing to work on?
I think my favorite thing to work on is working with the commercial business partners that we have, so the people that are non-finance. So a lot of my role is about understanding the finance side of things and explaining that to people who don't have a finance background, and just getting to work with the engineers and the commercial people. To me, that's really interesting, the mix of roles. So it's a bit broad, but it's in terms of like problem solving and figuring things out to make their lives a bit easier and able to use my knowledge to do that. That's probably my favorite thing.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I do have to move on just in the interest of time, but thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Ryan Lord, who is an engineering apprentice at Amy.
Yeah, morning everyone. So my name's Ryan. I'm working for Amy on Transpire in Manchester to Leeds, which is a £3 billion project. I started with Amy when I was 16, in 2016, doing working over blockades, which is where you close the lines for a few days straight, 24-hour work, putting in track around Salford area. And redoing and building I don't know if you might have seen it, but the new bridge that connects Man Victor and Piccadilly. Then after 2 years doing that, sort of in between my college, like summers and Christmases, I was earning money. Then when I left college at 18, I joined Amy full-time on a civil engineering degree at LJMU, and I'm currently in my fourth year there. Doing it is hard because a civil engineering degree is quite hard as it is, and I've got to do it while working full time, so it's quite challenging. But it's very beneficial because I don't get any of the debt and I get the work experience. So I would say a degree apprenticeship, if you're trying to push for the higher boundaries, where a degree is relevant and necessary, a degree apprenticeship is definitely the way to go. So through my time I've worked on a lot of things. So I started on track, actually installing track panels and rail and sleepers, laying track, using all the different surveying equipment, doing as-built surveys, so checking if the track's in the right place, moving it if necessary, carrying out amber trolley surveys, so measuring cant at the rail, which is the bend of the rail, and lots more. And then after a while on track, I've moved into signalling. So signalling is a very interesting area of the rail because it's becoming so digitized at the minute. They're pushing for where they're actually thinking of getting rid of certain aspects to make the train see the signals itself, but that's in a few years. But in signalling, I was, for example, I was able to track faults. So look for faults in a wire, in a connection between signal box and its feeder station called a load cabinet, which is very interesting. And it's just completely different from the track aspect, but it gives you a good all-round knowledge of what's actually going on out there. What makes the trains run, because obviously without, if the track's not right, the train won't run. If the signaling's not right, the train won't run. So it's very interesting to be a part of that. I'm currently now working in power and distribution. So again, it's to do with how we feed power into the trains because they're trying to go electric. So you've got your overhead lines where you put your power in, goes up into the overhead lines and into the train through the pantograph at the top of the train that runs along the wire, goes through the train, comes back out and into the rail, and then back, and it's just a big circuit. Through my knowledge, I've achieved the Engineering Technician Award. So what this is there's certain institutes on the railway that you can join to further your career. So, for instance, I've joined the PWI, which is specifically for track, permanent way. There's lots of different institutes. There's ones for signalling, ones for project management. What they do is they offer you free events and stuff to help further your knowledge, but it's also good for your CPD and for your professional registration. In engineering, professional registration goes engineering technician, incorporated engineer, and then to chartered engineer. With my degree, I work on iEng as part of it, but to push into the CEng, you need a master's. So hopefully after my degree, I'll be pushing on to that to get that CEng. I've just took on the role in my project of early careers committee chairman, so it's helping the apprentices and graduates really get into it, and I think it's a good way to help people really understand what they've got to do to be able to get to where they want. You know, it's no good you join in as an apprentice and no one's really going to help you. They just kind of expect you to be an apprentice and do all this and that. I think you need real mentorship, and you need to be told what you can aim for in the future, because everything's in your hands as an apprentice, especially because you can go anywhere. So if you want to say switch from construction to design, you can do that. If you want to do design to construction, you can do that. So fluid as an apprentice, you can really experience everything as a whole and get a good feel for what you want to do. So yeah.
Thanks very much for that, Ryan. I've got a quick question. How did you come by your apprenticeship opportunity? How did they recruit you?
So unfortunately, it was through a who you know situation. So my dad was working on the project, and he got me on when I was 16, and then I formed a relationship myself with the actual track team. You know, helping with the actual installation of track, and from this I continued to work with this team for 2 years, and then they took me on full time.
Excellent. Okay, and I've got a question here that's come in the chat, and from someone who isn't entirely sure what they want to do, and they ask, is there an opportunity to try different areas of the business, work on different types of technology, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I mean, I Transpired big project, £3 billion project, but it's because most rail projects that offer good apprenticeships are so vast. You can switch in and out of different things, and as Rhiannon said, you can do rotations. So you really get to experience everything that goes into building the railway itself and helping the trains run.
Fantastic. We do have another question. It's more of a general one. This was from Marianne, asking whether the degree is the same as a university degree or not. And the answer is absolutely it is. It's still studied at university. So Ryan, you're at Liverpool John Moores, is that right?
Yeah, I go once a week. I mean, it's hard because you're doing what a normal student does every day of the week for 3 years. You're doing it 1 day a week for 5 years. But it's very doable. And you don't come out of it with 30 grand debt.
Absolutely, so and that's a big consideration these days. Student debt. So if you are studying a degree apprenticeship, you do get the same degree as someone who's studying university full time, and you come out of university without the debt because your company have effectively paid for your tuition. And you're also earning at the same time you're doing it, which is again a massive plus. Do you find that although it is hard doing the same amount of work as a uni student might be doing 3 or 4 days a week in one day, are you helped by the fact that you're sort of instantly using that knowledge in your day-to-day job?
I'm not, unfortunately. I do a civil engineering degree, and I work on railway construction, so there is no compatibility.
Okay, so you've got an additional challenge then.
Yeah, I mean, a year after I joined, Amy started offering rail-specific degree apprenticeships, in Sheffield, which I know they recruit quite heavily on. So if you're looking to get into the construction side of the railway, I'd say that's a good way to go.
Yes. So actually, weirdly enough, I'm currently in the middle of overhauling the apprenticeship standard that you're referring to at the degree level. So that is the level 6 degree, which is rail and rail systems engineering. Okay. Thank you very much for your insights, Ryan. Really, really great to hear from you.
Cheers. Thank you.
I'm going to move on now to Jade, Jade Appleton, who is also at Amy, who is now an assistant project manager.
Yes. Yeah, thanks, Mike. So just to build upon a little bit what Ryan said there, so I am also with Amy, and I think one of the questions that actually just came up was you're not too sure what you want to do. You know, can you go into different areas of a business? And speaking for Amy, you definitely can. Amy, if you don't already know, they have 5 sort of main sectors at the minute. So we've got our secure infrastructure, our transport infrastructure, Amy Consulting, utilities, and waste treatment. Within those sectors, it does actually branch off even more, and there's so many disciplines that you can go into, and I think that's just one of the things that's so great about the rail industry. So just to give you a little bit more background on myself there, I actually, when I first joined Amy, so it's coming up 6 years ago, 6 years in May this year, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. I'd been at college, I'd studied dance, I'd studied biology, and at the time I actually wanted to try for the Royal Air Force, but it was just something that it just didn't work out for me. I had heard of the railway industry, obviously, and I had a family friend who worked for Amy at the time, a quite close family friend. So after speaking to him, he said, look, have you ever considered the rail industry? And at the time I was like, well, but I don't have any, I've not been to university. I don't have any engineering. I don't have any background in business. And he said, well, you don't need that. Amy offer their apprenticeship programs, and you can go in any direction that you want. So I joined Amy in 2016, and I started on their apprenticeship scheme as a level 3 diploma in business administration. So I'm with a team called SAFA, so we're the Civils Assessment Framework Agreement, and our main activities that we will perform structural assessments to identify the integrity and adequacy of a structure, which is it's something that I never even thought that I'd be close to, so it's pretty amazing. I'm actually now an assistant project manager. So my first apprenticeship that I did was for 12 months. And then between finishing that apprenticeship and to where I am now, I've actually had three different roles. And I've worked in 2 different areas of the business so far. So currently I'm with the transport infrastructure rail sector, and at one point I was actually with Amy's consulting sector. So just to touch upon the fact that if you don't have, you really don't need to have any business background, you don't need to have any engineering background to even do an apprenticeship in the rail industry. So it's pretty amazing. When I started my apprenticeship, I actually also had the opportunity to do my Duke of Edinburgh, my Gold Award. So there's also, doing an apprenticeship actually also gives you other opportunities like that. And again, that was something that I never thought that I'd ever have the opportunity to do or be able to do, especially alongside a full-time apprenticeship and a full-time job. But we've heard from Ryan and Rhiannon there, that the companies that we work with, and especially in this industry, they're just so supportive. The time that they give you to study, the support, from your line managers and your actual team members as well. It's just so good. So I've been doing my a level 4 diploma in project management at the moment. So I started this over a year ago, and I'm just coming up to the end of it. And I've had not just support from my line manager, but from the team of engineers that I work with as well. Helping me to not just understand about project management and business itself, but to actually understand more about what the guys do in their day-to-day roles. And I've actually also had the opportunity, whilst being at Amy, to go out and do site visits in the past. So, getting out there on site, seeing the guys in action, and that's also helped massively. Amy actually do at the minute have quite a lot of apprenticeships going, and these can be found on Amy's website through their early careers section. So I would encourage anybody, whether you want to know what you do at this moment in time or you don't, you want a career change, absolutely, just go for it. Thanks, Mike. I'll hand back over if that's all right.
Thanks so much for that, Jade. Really, really interesting. We've got a question that's come from Matt, and this is a great question because I think the old-fashioned view of apprentices can be one of being given all of the naff jobs and sweeping up and making tea. Matt asks, how do you feel being an apprentice? Do you feel valued, or do you just get the worst jobs that no one wants to do?
No, absolutely. I feel valued 100%, and I have done since day one. And I have to admit, I remember starting Amy and thinking, oh yeah, I'm an apprentice, and am I sort of going to get the very rubbish admin-y jobs, filing, scanning, printing, that kind of thing. And it's not like that at all. No way. Because of the two different types of apprenticeships that I've done at the minute, the team, I've been very lucky, the team and the line management that I've had, have always, put me in there, sometimes put me in the deep end to really to support what I'm learning and to give me the opportunity to actually apply what I'm learning. It's really not like that at all.
Absolutely. Apprenticeships are a real investment from companies. They are investing in people, they're investing in skills and qualifications, and it costs a lot of money to bring on an apprentice, especially someone who's qualified to level 4 and is managing projects and delivering business. It's really not the old-fashioned view at all.
No.
Can I ask you a question? What do you enjoy most about working at Amy?
Just working with a diverse range of people. I've worked with so many people of different backgrounds, and it's learning about their experiences and their cultures. That's the best thing for me. At Amy, it really does. It genuinely feels like a family. Because, especially for me, I've had the opportunity to just meet so many different people across all Amy's sectors that it's just nice. There's so many people that you can go to of all different levels as well, which is nice. I know sometimes people think, oh, well, I can't speak to, the more senior management within a company, but it's so wrong. You really can go to them and they will be there 100% to support you.
That's fantastic, especially when I know that Amy's quite a large business, so to have that sort of more personal family feel is really nice. Jade, thank you very much. I will hand over now to Matthew, who is a customer service apprentice for Great Western.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. As said, I am Matt. I have been working as a customer service apprentice for Great Western Railway for the last 6 months. I started in September, and I'm just going to go over a bit about what I've done over the course of these 6 months. So as I said, I started in September. It was a very simple application process. You apply, you interview, and you get the job. And you spend the first 2 months roughly being introduced to the apprenticeship and you undertake several training workshops and activities. So we started going to Bristol, and they taught us about what company values are, a bit more about what I'd be doing on the apprenticeship, and then you would undertake sort of skills and training weeks. So we started out going to something called Skern Lodge down in Devon, where you go with the 3 other apprenticeship course, because there's 3 apprentices apprenticeship course. One is the customer service apprenticeship, which is what I'm on. The other one is the Aspire apprenticeship, and that is based off management. So if you want to go into the management jobs of Great Western Railway, you go on that one. And then there's the engineering apprentices, which is obviously self-explanatory. And you'd all work alongside each other in these activity weeks, get to know each other, and you build a lot of team building skills, which is what Great Western Railway is quite big on, working as a team. And then as we got into the actual apprenticeship, where we work at our stations, on the job, every 6 weeks you are introduced to a different sector of the railway's jobs. So I started out learning revenue, which was where I would shadow a revenue officer on the trains. We'd go around making sure everyone's got tickets, selling them to anyone who didn't have access to any railway tickets when they first travelled. And then I started work in Gateline. And after those 6 weeks, I started on station ops, which is what I'm currently on, where we learn all about dispatching, helping customers, any disabled people, you help them onto the trains, so stuff like that. And then I believe in the next 6 weeks, I will be going on to the ticket office. So there's a really big range of what they teach you in this apprenticeship, and it really gives you a lot of flexible options at the end of this apprenticeship into what you want to basically apply for. So also on the side of this apprenticeship during the 18 months, you will be doing a Duke of Edinburgh Gold Award. Unfortunately, I am not doing this. I am too old. I'm 25, so I am too old to do the Duke of Edinburgh. But what I can say from learning from the other apprentices is it is a very good opportunity to have. It's a very tough one. You have to do a lot of work, such as volunteering, some fitness goals, and then obviously you have the hike in Dartmoor. At some point you will have it I think they have it in June this year. But it is something really good to work for, and it's a very good opportunity that GWR do give you. And also alongside the apprenticeship, you also have to do a certificate of higher education qualification with Glasgow University for the industry of railway operations, which I will admit was very tough to get into at the start for me. Before coming into this job, I had very simple qualifications. I had my GCSEs and that was about it. And then I'd spent 6 years working in a post office and retail. So I was a bit nervous going straight into a uni degree. But what I will say is Great Western Railway offer you a lot of support alongside with this degree. They have offered me coaching, mentorship, and you get a lot of study days allocated to you. So, during the week when I'd be working at the station, they also allocate time for me to be at home studying for this qualification, which is really handy. And that's something that Great Western Railway are very good at, which is managing your time and helping you, because it can, if they didn't, it'd be very easy to, be quite lost on this apprenticeship. But I would say that their support has been magnificent so far. But yeah, I think that's really about it. It really just teaches you a lot of things that you would do in the railway and gives you a lot of flexible opportunities into what you want to go in. So I'll hand you back now.
Thank you very much, Matthew. It's really interesting to see just how many different facets there are to your apprenticeship. So doing a certificate in higher education, and well, you're not doing the Duke of Edinburgh's award, but that as well. How do you feel that's made you more rounded in your job?
I would say I've definitely grown as a person thanks to this job. Before this job, I was quite stuck for a few years. You know, I was in retail for quite a long time. I was sort of there like, this is going to be what I'm done. I don't know where to go after this. And I was very unconfident with myself. And I'd say this job has taught me a lot about, being a lot more confident with myself and knowing that I can have a lot of opportunities for the future,
Absolutely. We've got a question. This comes from Sarah. I'm not sure, again, if this was posted earlier in the chat, but I think it's a really good one to ask. Obviously, you're being rotated around the different parts of GWR, and you're doing ticket, you're doing front of house, etc. And you had no experience in rail before you joined. What skills do you need to succeed in rail?
So I'd actually say it's less about what skills you need, and they more take you on based on what kind of a person you are. So there's several other people in the apprenticeship right now who have literally just come out of school. They haven't had any experience with working or previous stuff, but they more hire you based, as long as you go in and they see that you are a confident person who wants to progress with their future and you really want to work hard. That is really, I think, what they look for. And they would teach you more skills during this apprenticeship to use in the future.
Excellent. Okay. And lastly, what do you enjoy most in your job?
I definitely say it's a lot of the opportunities they've given me. So before this, I wasn't really a traveler, I was, one holiday a year sort of thing. That was it. But as soon as I got into the apprenticeship, it was like, right, you are going, you're going to Wales and you're going to all these different places now to do activity weeks and do all these experiences. And also, you're doing a uni degree basically for free, which is really nice. And I think it's just a lot of the opportunities they just throw at you, which is really good.
Fantastic. And do you have a career goal in mind? Do you have like a position that you're working your way towards?
I do now. It was a bit difficult to decide at first, as there's a lot of things you can go into, but my one's a lot of the apprentices, they want to, become drivers and stuff like that. But me, I'm looking at more of becoming a mentor for the next years of apprentices, because I think that's something I'd really like to do.
Oh, that's really good. So it's not just about obviously yourself; it's about investing in the next generation as well.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I need to say sort of special thanks to Matthew actually, because he only agreed to do this late last week. So thank you very much for putting that together.
No
I'd like to say, just thank you again to all of the apprentices who have given up their time to talk to you guys today, and we really hope that's been informative. A couple of questions are still coming in. I've got a question here on train driving. This is from Elliot, and he asks, does he need any experience in rail to go straight to start a train driving apprenticeship? The answer is no. You can go onto a train driving apprenticeship with no experience. You do have to pass psychometric testing for your train driver license, and you have to be 21 to apply for your train driver license as well. But apart from that, it is a career you can go into with no prior experience. Okay, so just some tips and advice. There are loads of different routes into apprenticeships, and it is worthwhile having a look at the different train operating companies, train engineering companies, and looking at their individual apprenticeship programs, because they will vary in the types of recruitment they'll do. Some of them will be quite competitive. Others are a bit more general, and there's a lot more vacancies, as we know, in engineering than there is in, say, IT or train driving. But definitely have a look at the different employers out there. You can look through different websites, but you can find information on all of these guys on the Routes into Rail website as well. And definitely research which route interests you the most. So if you've got a general idea about what type of career or what type of skills that you think you might be able to use most effectively, have a look, do your research and see where that would be most suited. If you're a people person, definitely look into customer service, definitely look into the front of house, definitely look into being a guard. If you're, great at IT, there are loads of digital roles and IT roles out there. And again, if you're practical, there's a lot of engineering roles. If you're, someone who's interested or have got a knack for science and maths, have a look at engineering. Also, have a look in advance as well. So some apprenticeships open at certain times of the year. Others are open all year round. So it's best to just keep a note of when people near you or companies that you're particularly interested in. It's always best to look at when they're recruiting and when they open the books, but also look at smaller companies as well. So there are Network Rails, there are Amy's and Great Western, big train operating companies, but there are a lot of smaller companies that provide quite specific services to rail. Okay, so we've got some information and some vacancies from those on the Routes into Rail website, but it's just a really good tip just to have a more general approach and try and include everyone. So we do have a few minutes for some extra Q&A as well. Also, there's a QR code here for the Routes into Rail website, and there's the URL routesintораil.org as well. Also, thanks to some of the businesses that are named here as sponsors for Routes into Rail. So Network Rail, Amy, HS2, the National Skills Academy for Rail, where I work. Also, Volker, the Railway Industries Association, and Porterbrook, another train operator as well. Are there any other questions? Oh, I've got one coming in the chat now. Chloe asks, what happens if I start an apprenticeship but struggle with the learning? Is there extra support available, or do you just get left to get on with it? Do you know what? I'm going to ask if Matthew can actually answer that, because he's said about some of the support that's available from GWR.
Yeah, I saw this question earlier. Thanks for letting me have a go at it. So yes, there is a lot of extra support that is available to you, and you're not just left to get on with it by yourself, which is the great thing. So you do, with the Certificate of Higher Education for the university, you do get allocated your own mentor to help you along with the course, which is really good. But also they consistently check in on you to make sure you're not struggling. Like once a month, you have to have a meeting with a mentor to, really assess how you've been doing, how you've been progressing, and if you're struggling anywhere. And they will, look into this. If you're struggling at any point, they will look into helping you out, which is really good of them.
Fantastic. So as I've mentioned earlier, there's a lot of investment required for into apprenticeships. So you're certainly not going to be left just to struggle. And if that did happen, then, that's really the employer not really, doing their due diligence. But I would say that is quite a rare thing to happen. We've got a question here from James, who asks, are there any work experience opportunities available before taking on an apprenticeship? So this would be down to the individual companies as to whether or not they offer work experience. But do any of our panelists know of any work experience opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, when I started, I know they do internships, and Kickstart is a big thing as well. And I think it's where you take on 15 hours of work in a week in part of the team, and then offered a job after it.
Thanks, Ryan. Any others?
I know the apprenticeships that GWR do are based yearly, so they do. I believe they send out applications and all that. I think it's around May every year, I believe, for the one I'm doing.
Okay, fantastic. Any others or?
Yeah, just to add, really, I know that Amy Consul in the past have had work experience. I don't know too many details on it, but they definitely have had work experience.
Okay, well, thanks for that. And actually, it's a really good, if you're interested in, I know particularly if you're looking at engineering, you can look at STEM learning. They're quite a big organisation that offer an arranged work experience, and you could always contact them to see if there are any rail opportunities. We've got a question here from Sally, who asks about infrastructure projects planned for the north of England. And Ryan, I was just wondering about the project you're working on.
Yeah, so Transpire's one of the biggest, I think the biggest rail project the North's ever had. It'll be growing for like next, I think, 8 or 9 years, so plenty of time for you to get involved. But there's always stuff going on. It's just it doesn't really come out into the wider world. But yeah, lots of things. I
think there's definitely some more publicity that some of these projects could get given. And for those who are unfamiliar with the Transpire project, what does it do?
It's journey time improvement and general upgrade between Manchester and Leeds. So over the Transpennine route, and obviously it's just like a normal rail project. So you've got all these different aspects coming into one together, from commercial, finance, HR, health, safety, construction, design, and then in them disciplines there's even more branches to go. So something for everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Ryan. Well, we've got a question from Julie asking if Routes into Rail can come into schools and do these types of talks with students. We have done that in the past. Unfortunately, COVID has affected us slightly, but we are looking to do some more events. But this probably won't be going into schools, but more attending careers fairs and that sort of thing. As well. So yeah, certainly look out for Routes into Rail at any careers fairs, etc., when they start to become a bit more popular again. I'm not seeing any other questions that we haven't sort of covered in any other way. So with a couple of minutes to spare, I'm happy to say thank you again to all of our speakers, and if anyone does have a last minute question they want to pop in the chat, now would be the time. But we're all quiet, so I'll say thank you again. Thank you all to I think the highest number I saw was 653 people on the webinar, so really good turnout. Really pleased to see you all and have you all join us. I hope that's been really informative, and I'll say thank you very much and goodbye.